Hi, welcome everyone, and thanks for watching. My name is Sheila, and I have Molly Barth here. She's a therapist and a bookkeeper with Crow and Pebble Consulting, and she's joined us to talk about how to make your business financially successful and all your bookkeeping needs. This is really great. There's some really cool things that she has to share with us today. I'm super excited for us to dive in. So let's do so. Molly, thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to connect and just share some information.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you and your journey and how you ended up really combining your skills in this way.
Yeah, I mean, I get this question a lot, actually. It turns out it's a pretty unique crossover. Not a lot of accountant therapists out there. The short answer really is that I just made a career change from accounting to therapy. But the longer answer is that both of those elements have really been in my life forever.
Hmm.
My mom was an accountant, so I got a really early start working with numbers. I'd work with her after school, starting in middle school. So it's been, gosh, almost 20 years now. And I've been in and out of bookkeeping ever since then. So there was this point where I realized that full-time accounting was not really for me anymore. And mainly just because I felt like I wasn't having the impact that I really wanted to. So when I went back to school or was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do,
Hmm.
um, therapy just really made sense. I've always been like that person, which I'm sure you understand, like strangers telling you their life story, friends coming for advice. So
Hmm.
it seemed like a natural progression. And then there was parts that I really did love about accounting, talking to small business owners about their dreams and goals and fears, collaborating on how to get from one point to another. And then my favorite part was really building confidence in their ability to understand and manage something that was so daunting. And a lot of that's pretty translatable over to therapy too. So,
Yeah.
um,
I love that. And you offer specific services for therapists too. I mean, you know what it's like to be on both sides, which is such a cool niche in a way, right? Because I think like I can speak for me, I love to work with other people who really get therapy and therapists. There's just something about that connection, right? In the community. And so you offer something really unique. So tell us a little bit about what services that you offer currently for therapists.
yeah, well, I'm glad that you spoke to that. I mean, I think that hearing things from a peer just makes it a lot more accessible and
Hmm.
less scary.
Yeah.
So I am offering, I'm really dipping my toe back into the accounting side of things. I'm I've done the whole range. So when it comes to consulting, I can really speak to all of it, really whatever you have going on, I'd be able to answer questions, but I'm focusing more on initial setup training at this point. So that can be pretty broad, but actually creating an LLC, how to go about setting up your financial tracking, and then troubleshooting along the way. So yeah, setup, training, and troubleshooting.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned offering to some other little pieces where you could even help create, I think, right? Create something that really fits for them versus just, hey, sign up for this thing. I mean, not to bash QuickBooks, right? It's a great tool, but like it isn't tailored to them. And starting out, sometimes we need something a little more simple, right? If we can't necessarily afford all of those other things. So you kind of have something cool that you're doing with that too.
Yeah, so I've started making some custom spreadsheets for just for tracking income and expenses. So, yes, like you were saying, QuickBooks is great. It really is, but it has so much
Hmm.
functionality. It's really easy to get lost.
It's a lot to learn.
A
Yeah.
lot to learn, and people can be running multi-million dollar businesses in QuickBooks. So there's honestly too too many tools for people who are just getting started. And I feel like it can be really overwhelming, not to mention expensive. this
Hmm.
ongoing subscription. So I've started making these custom spreadsheets that can be just really simple, just the bare minimum that you would need to file your taxes at the end of the year, all the way up to ones that are automatically creating monthly, quarterly, and annual financial statements.
That's
So,
savvy.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love it.
all the formulas. So you just have to go in and, you know, assign a code to it, and then everything else is automatic. So it's just really however detailed people want to get and how much they're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just love that. I'm a spreadsheet girl. So I love that. And I think
Love
other
this
people
spreadsheet.
like that too. It just, you want it to look a certain way or be a certain way for you to understand it. And anything that we can have to simplify, right? Because I know that so many times I see in groups online that they're overwhelmed going into trying to start private practice or jumping in and all these things to know, right? And the financial side is a part of that. So like, what are some common challenges that you see from therapists who are jumping in on the financial side?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's usually just not even knowing what they don't know, not
Mm,
where to start. And if you, gosh, I'm sure everybody's Googled this at one point or another, and there's just so much, and the tax jargon is so overwhelming and scary. So I think, what I often see is that people start to go out into the world and like look at everything there is on the financial side, get super overwhelmed, and then shut down. And
mhm,
either that goes to just preventing them from making the steps into actually starting the business, or they just ignore all of it until tax time, and then it's a huge mess and much more complicated to
mhm,
unravel a whole year's worth, or as I've seen in the past, multiple years worth of finances and try to get everything in order. So,
mhm. And that just stresses everyone else. Yeah.
yeah.
Everyone out, all
Yeah.
around. So if someone is just starting out, what would you say are maybe the first few financial steps that someone should probably take setting up their practice, just to simplify it for them?
Yeah, top three, set up your LLC, get a business bank account, and start figuring out a way that you're going to track your expenses. So whether
Mhm.
that's spreadsheet or other tax software, or even writing it on a piece of paper, just having some way to track throughout the year. Yeah.
Yep. I feel like so many people think that it's expensive to start a business. And, I think there's lots of different ways to do it, that people choose to do it. And there isn't one right way, right? But I do think that those are three things we have to make sure our accounts are separate, right? And that
Hmm.
we are tracking everything. It is so easy to forget the things that we're spending and buying for our business, especially right away, right?
Hmm. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and tracking like throughout the year, it helps make sure that you're not missing deductions, because who
Hmm.
wants to pay more in taxes than you have to? So
No one.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to catch those as you're going.
So you mentioned an LLC, and I think most people know at some point to do that, right? But the language gets thrown around and people get really confused, right? What does it really mean to have an LLC? Why is that important? And like, what is this S corp? And what is all that? Can you kind of explain a little bit of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, in my workshop, I get a lot more in the nitty-gritty of, different legal structures and tax classifications. And, when I when I say that, that's enough for people's eyes to glaze over. But I promise that I
It's a
do
good
make it,
overview.
yeah, I do make it really accessible, and I have like a Q&A and everything. So we can get into the nitty-gritty of that there. But um, at just like the base, LLC stands for a limited liability company, and it's just a protection for you and your personal assets. So, really important to get that. It's pretty straightforward to do. There's a lot of scary language around it. So, that's something I can also help with, is getting it set up. But um, pretty cheap. It's $50 through the state, and it just protects you. It also gives a
Mhm,
little bit of legitimacy to your business. It's official at that point.
mhm,
And it really protects you, not only from the liability side, but also from audit risk and, you know, any of the stressors that come with that. So really is a good idea, and it's not as scary as it sounds, I promise.
I believe you. Um, I know this one's a common one, and not to throw you out in there. So, just to kind of preface this, but one of the questions that a lot of people were highlighting in the group in particular that I run is, these quarterly taxes and how much to really pull. And I know that it's you can't just give a blanket answer for everyone. Everyone's situation is different. It really depends on like what your overall income is that you kind of have coming in, right? And over the years and with your partner, whoever is in your life. So there's a lot of factors that people need to consider, but even just kind of safely, like how do you go about maybe supporting someone figuring that out? And any maybe like little tips to alleviate stress for people around that.
Yeah, I mean, that can be the scariest thing and the biggest surprise at, the end of the year,
Hmm.
especially for new business owners, is just not understanding the estimated taxes and having a huge bill at the end of the year. So,
Hmm.
my rule of thumb, if you take nothing else from this video, is set aside at least 25% of your income, just stash it away in an account. Don't look at it, don't think about it. And then it'll really save you a lot of heartache at the end of the year. So,
It does. I feel like that is a safe number. It's the number that I've used the last few years, and with other things that I write off, I end up getting a little back, sometimes a lot, and that's great for me. I'm okay if they give me more than 1,000 and I pay
yes,
in. I would rather get it back than have to pay. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And, that's another thing that I go over more in my workshop about all the pieces that go into estimated taxes. So, state and FICA, which you don't have to know what that is, but and your federal taxes and kind of all these pieces. So you can get a more
Hmm.
exact number if you want to, but yeah, that 25% is a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, and you can help them even figure out what it is that they really need to pay based off of their life and their situation, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it sounds like the workshops and the consultations you provide really help people feel more confident going into this, which is so needed and so important. What is a tip maybe you would give for any therapist who feels really hesitant on the financial side, that could help them feel more empowered?
You know, it's not as scary as as you think it's going to be. When I work with people and, just like really break it down and put it into simple terms instead of all the jargon,
Hmm.
the thing that I hear most often is, oh, that's not actually that bad, or that's not actually that scary. Um, and
The
all the
fear of the
time,
unknown,
the fear
right?
of the unknown. Yes, absolutely. And I often hear people say, oh my gosh, you're an accountant, you must be so good at math. But accounting is almost all just adding and subtracting, and filling out tax forms. And then it gets all muddied with all of the scary language and the
Hmm.
gatekeeping and everything, but really it just comes down to adding and subtracting, and everyone really can do it a lot more easily
Yeah,
than they can.
that's what I was thinking, right? As you were saying that, like you can do this, like you can. It is not as daunting as it feels,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we all went through grad school, we did clinical work and internships and videos, and we did hard stuff. We can do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we were always doing documentation for insurance companies. Like, really, accounting it's not as scary as people think it is.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you have that you've got going on. You've got some upcoming workshops, some tools. What other resources do you have that you want to offer the community?
The biggest thing, and I mentioned it a couple times because I'm excited about it, is my business basics workshop, and it just goes over all the basics, everything that you need to know as a starting point. So instead of it being just like I don't even know what I don't know, it just gives that overview. Um, and then from there, I can do one-on-one consulting to just get into more of details that relate specifically to each person's business. Um,
Mhm.
and then all the customization. So doing spreadsheets that are a good match for them, figuring out, you know, just really anything that has to do with
Yeah.
their business. I feel like I can answer the question or at least point them in the right direction.
Yeah. And something that I love about your style too is like you're so down to earth and you explain things in a way that we get it. Not that, I don't know, sometimes when you talk to bookkeepers and they're using all this jargon, right? Or CPAs, you're like, I don't know what that means.
Hmm.
What does that mean? It's that part, it can be overwhelming. But I think you have this lovely delivery that feels really good. And like, it's easier to receive the information too, it does make a difference. So, yeah, so that's great. So, how could they access these workshops? Is it virtual? Is it in person? Do you offer them quarterly? What does that look like?
So I'm really starting to ramp this up and find, what's gonna work best for people. But I've been doing an online workshop for the business basics, and the timing is pretty flexible. So I've posted a few different time slots on my Calendly link, which we're gonna drop, I think, below this video.
Yeah.
Um, but those are pretty flexible. So if anybody, sees that and the time doesn't work, reach out to me. My email is crowandpebbleconsulting@gmail. I think that'll probably also be dropped below here. But yeah, I can be really flexible, see what time works for you. If you have a group of people that want to do the workshop together, I can do, bundle discounts, everything. So just reach out to me. We'll figure out what works.
Yeah, my interest, I'm like most piqued by your fancy one with all of the stuff that spits out these other reports. I'm kind of like, ooh, I want one of those. So we'll have to
Yeah, we'll
talk
have to
about
chat.
that.
We'll have to chat. I love it. I love an automatic
Yeah.
through on a
I
spreadsheet.
know how to do just enough to be dangerous in there? So, okay,
Yeah.
well, so we've got the financial tools, we know how to find you. Just one more piece of wisdom for everyone. What is just one more to kind of leave them with? What is one piece of financial wisdom that you wish that every therapist knew when they started their practice?
Mm, I I really think it comes down to like you can do it. You really can do it. Um, and probably tracking it throughout, just do a little bit at a time. Don't wait until April 15th because it's going to be so much scarier and more overwhelming
Hmm.
then. So
Yep.
now,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, take some time periodically to work on it, however you build that in. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, right? I mean, how many people, when they haven't gone into private practice or they're scared, it's for a financial reason,
Hmm.
one way or another. Am I going to get enough clients? We take that down to financial, right? And can I sustain? And how do I make that jump? And all of these things, it's financial fear. And so if you can get knowledgeable about it, right? And have someone that you feel comfortable working with that can teach those things to you, like we need to know our business and understand our money. So it's not scary. And then we make better, healthier decisions for our business, right? Instead of like out of fear. We
Hmm.
don't want to make fear-based decisions. Yeah.
Absolutely. And really, when I've worked with so many different businesses across every industry, and they are so good at the thing that they're doing, and then business can be just an afterthought. So I really just want to equip people so that they feel good about, the thing that they're offering, like therapy, or whatever
Hmm.
else, and that they feel confident on the business side. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, that's
Yep.
important. It's
It's so
important.
important. We got to feel good about what we're doing on all areas, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Molly, I appreciate you and for sitting down and chatting with me. This has been really great, and I'm excited to know more, and I hope other people are. I will put in the chat for everyone and in the comment section how to find Molly and her and Crow and Pebble, excuse me, consulting. And I hope everyone found this video enjoyable. And thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Of course. Thanks for having me on. And I hope to hear from some of you. All
Yep, great.
right.